Welcome back to the channel. If you're new to the channel, be sure to subscribe, give a like and hit the notification bell for future videos. And in today's video, we're going to be looking at the case of Dalian Atkinson, who tragically lost his life at the hands of a UK police officer. I've only managed to conclude this video lately due to the outcome of the finalisation of this case last week. Enjoy.
This, perhaps his finest moment.
And that's a superb individual goal by Dalian Atkinson.
But prosecutors say he died a victim of an unlawful attack by a police officer.
They're accused of lashing out in anger, of intending to cause serious injury. PC Benjamin Monk in the black mask denies murder and manslaughter. Next to him, PC Mary Ellen Betley Smith, who denies assault.
PC Benjamin Monk of West Mercia Police is on trial accused of murdering him by tasering him excessively and then kicking him in the head as he lay on the ground.
The gentleman was walking towards the police and I heard the policeman say about the taser, and he's sort of still stumbling forward, so I don't know if he was drunk or that was difficult to see completely. And then he tasered him, and as he dropped like a lead balloon, and when he was down, they started kicking him.
Who did?
The policeman.
Did they? Really?
And the one policeman actually said to the other officer who was still kicking, "Back off, back off, back off." Then I heard the taser, you can hear that zzz sound. They kept tasering him, and that just sort of seemed to be constant on and off taser, but he was on the floor already. They tasered him about 4 or 5 times, but long periods of taser. It was like zzz for 10, 11 seconds at a time.
I opened up the curtains and there was umpteen police cars. Then a bit later on, an ambulance come, and then I seen the ambulance people taking the bloke down on the stretcher. I thought he was just injured, I don't know.
He was always friendly, got on well with people, so just really shocked.
Yeah. He's always been friendly.
Yeah, he
spoke to everybody. Yeah.
And
so it's just, I don't know, it really is shocking.
In August 2016, he and his colleague had been called to this street in Telford in the early hours of the morning. Dalian Atkinson had turned up at his father's house, behaving erratically, shouting in the street and claiming to be the Messiah. PC Monk used his taser on him twice, but it didn't work. With Dalian Atkinson advancing towards him, the court was told PC Monk then fired his taser a 3rd time. This time, keeping his finger on the trigger for 33 seconds. That's more than 6 times the standard amount, even as the former footballer fell to the ground. He is then accused of kicking him so hard that the imprint of his laces was left on Dalian Atkinson's forehead. The court was told that when more officers arrived, one saw that PC Monk had his foot on Dalian Atkinson's head. He died an hour later. He had serious health problems, but prosecutors claim it was the taser and kicks that killed him, telling the jury, in kicking Dalian Atkinson to the head, PC Monk can only have intended to cause really serious injury. He was no doubt angry that he'd been put in fear by this man. He chose to take that anger out on Dalian Atkinson. PC Monk denies murder and manslaughter. His colleague that night, PC Mary Ellen Betley Smith, denies assaulting Dalian Atkinson with her baton. They claim they used reasonable force to protect themselves. But the prosecution says witnesses saw Dalian Atkinson lying still and unresponsive. A jury will decide which version they believe.
Okay, and then again, you've just described to Paul how he was sort of trying to get up and things like that, and you were aware that Ellie was doing baton strikes on the lower half of his body.
Yes.
Can you tell me where you were stood?
Yeah, I can show you. I can tell you. It's an empty glass one. Basically, this is the gentleman here. Gentleman here.
Yeah.
Lying as well, for want of a better word. And this is his left shoulder here.
Yeah.
Left shoulder, and I'm stood there.
Okay.
I'm stood there, so 2 paces away, off his left shoulder.
Okay, and for sort of clarity, can you show me where Ellie was?
Oh.
Or where you can recall that she was?
That would be a guess, but I know this was her, where she was applying the baton strikes. Her placement after that, you'd have to ask her, I don't know.
No
so
problem.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so she was applying the baton strikes, and then you'd said to her to get back.
Yeah.
What did you mean by that?
Because what she was doing was ineffective,
okay.
And I'd formed the opinion that I was going to, the only way I could keep this man on the ground to ensure our safety, I was going to kick him.
Okay.
And that's what I did. And I thought, well, whatever proximity was to me, I didn't want to go anywhere near it, because if I kick her over, I'm in the same position.
Okay.
So that was my intention, to make sure she was safely back while I did that.
Okay, perfect, thank you. So could you describe to me the kick that you did?
Yeah, of course. It was basically right-footed, pulled my right foot back, kicked him in the area which I believe to be his shoulder area, with one kick. Okay. And it would have been, the placement of the foot would have been, for want of a description, on the laces, like a football boot, if you can imagine. So not on. Can I show?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it's literally there.
Okay, and
there.
Where did that make contact?
I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know.
Okay. But for clarity, you're saying that's the part of your foot that you used?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
And which shoulder was it that you said you guessed it was a shoulder?
His left shoulder.
So his left shoulder.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. And you said it was one kick.
One kick.
Yeah.
Yes, to the best of my recollection.
Okay.
It was one kick.
Okay, that's okay. Any questions?
And there's a car pulled up outside an old man's house, and then there was somebody shouting, and then he went back to his car, and then he went back to the door, kicked it, and told the bloke he better let him in, because he's dead, and he's just gone and opened the door and he's gone in.
We're going to return to the breaking news I've brought you a few moments ago. That's concerning the police officer who has been convicted of the manslaughter of former footballer Dalian Atkinson. Today he has been sentenced to 8 years in prison. You may remember some of the details of the case. Dalian Atkinson, in an altercation with this officer outside his father's home in Telford, Shropshire, the police officer discharged a taser 3 times and kicked him in the head twice, the court heard. It was very disturbing evidence that was given. Sky's Becky Johnson has been following the case. She's outside Birmingham Crown Court now. And a sentence of 8 years handed down. Becky.
Yes, PC Benjamin Monk from West Mercia Police jailed for 8 years for the manslaughter of Dalian Atkinson. The judge telling him as he jailed him that he was sure that the kicks that PC Monk delivered to Dalian Atkinson's head were a contributory factor to his death. And he said that in handing down a sentence, he had to have in mind that the public entrust powers to police, and the sentence given to PC Monk must reflect the importance of maintaining trust in police. PC Monk, of course, the first police officer in England to be convicted of manslaughter for an act in the line of duty for over 30 years, now beginning that 8-year jail sentence. And there were tears from Mr. Atkinson's partner as once again the judge went over the details of this terrible case. It was almost 5 years ago when police were called to the street where Dalian Atkinson's father lived. Dalian Atkinson, the judge reminded the court today, was acting completely out of character. He had, of course, had a hugely successful career as a footballer, most notably with Aston Villa, but also playing with other clubs, was well loved by many fans, but his health had deteriorated and neighbours called the police. There was then a confrontation. PC Monk tasered him for some 33 seconds. The normal cycle of a taser is just 5 seconds, and then delivered those kicks to Mr. Atkinson's head. Those kicks delivered with such force that the imprint of PC Monk's bootlace was found in 2 places on Dalian Atkinson's forehead, and he died a short time later. For Mr. Atkinson's family, this trial has been incredibly harrowing. They've had to relive all those terrible details of what happened that night. The judge said that from the statements that Mr. Atkinson's family have given to the court, he can see that none of them can come to terms with their loss. And I've been speaking to Dalian Atkinson's long-term partner, Karen Wright. This was her reaction to what she's heard in this court over recent weeks.
The whole trial has been harrowing. Seeing his clothes in exhibit bags after I've seen them go on his back in the bedroom that morning, when he put the clothes on, to then seeing them wed. It's just been harrowing. If we've got brutality on our streets by people that we rely on in the, then the justice system needs to serve justice.
We are expecting shortly some reaction to this sentence from Mr. Atkinson's family. When PC Monk was convicted last week, they spoke of their relief. They said that on that night, Dalian Atkinson needed help for his mental health, and instead he was kicked in the head by a police officer. So we'll wait to see what their reaction is to this sentence of 8 years imprisonment for PC Benjamin Monk.
PC Monk used horrendous force against Dalian, who was in an extremely vulnerable position and in mental health crisis, and he needed help. This was a callous attack and a terrible abuse of a police officer's position of trust. He then failed to give a full and honest account of what happened, including at his trial. We're pleased that all of these factors have been reflected in the sentence. We were shocked to learn that PC Monk was not sacked in February 2011 for gross misconduct for his dishonesty. He should never have been working for the police in August 2016, and Dalian should not have died. We pay tribute to all the bereaved families of black men who have died at the hands of the police and whose fight for justice has not led to successful prosecutions. It shouldn't take the death of a famous footballer for the criminal justice system to work properly, and we hope that more families can secure justice in future, regardless of whether the deceased is a high-profile person. As his fellow footballers take the knee, we hope that they will honour the memory of Dalian. Whilst this case has taken far too long, we thank the IOPC and the CPS for ultimately bringing PC Monk to justice. Thank you.
Tonight, Benjamin Monk will begin the first night of his sentence behind bars. But tonight, John, he's still formally employed by West Mercia Police. The force told us that they'll now conduct a fast-track hearing for Monk. He is the first white officer to be convicted of the manslaughter of a black man in the line of duty. But today there was some criticism of the sentence he received for this, because it's emerged that when Monk applied to join the police force, he failed to disclose 2 previous police cautions. And when the West Mercia force eventually found out about this, they found him guilty of gross misconduct, but they allowed him to keep his job. And Mr. Atkinson's family were extremely critical of this today in a statement outside court. And when the England footballers and footballers from both sides at the start of today's match took the knee, they said that they hope that they will honour the memory of the former Villa player. Still employed by West Mercia Police, tonight PC Benjamin Monk begins his prison sentence. The first white officer to be convicted of the manslaughter of a black man in the line of duty. Relief from Dalian Atkinson's siblings. But, they said, it shouldn't have taken the death of a famous footballer for the criminal justice system to work properly. There was very little reaction from the police officer as he was sentenced to 8 years for manslaughter. The judge said that Benjamin Monk's kicks to Dalian Atkinson's head after he had tasered the footballer to the ground contributed to his death. He said the sentence must reflect public confidence in the police. But today there was some public criticism of the sentence after the judge told Monk that he'd be eligible for release after 5 years. On the night of his death in Telford, Mr. Atkinson had been suffering an acute mental health crisis. His family said instead of receiving help, he received violence. 5 minutes after arriving at the scene, Monk tasered him 3 times and then kicked him in the head.
Race played a significant part in this. A big, bad black man was actually tasered by white police officers because they were frightened. Not because he was committing a criminal offence, not because he was carrying a weapon.
The police officers argued in court that they feared for their life. They were scared. Do you have any sympathy for that?
No. Did they try to de-escalate? Did they try to reason? You may say, well, there are potential mental health issues here. Then you're supposed to take that appropriate action to safeguard. The action taken wasn't safeguarding action. The action taken was to inflict pain to gain control.
for Dalian Atkinson! Justice! No justice!
Hugely popular in his local community, the footballer's death led to protests. Wider concerns were raised about the disproportionate use of taser against those from black communities.
They should be there to protect us, not to taser and kick us. You just lose faith in the justice system.
This programme has learnt that 3 years prior to his death, Mr Atkinson had formally complained to the IOPC about what he saw as repeated unnecessary stop and searches.
Very frustrated about his probably lifelong harassment from the police, where he's had many, stop and search because he's a young black male driving a bright yellow Ferrari.
West Mercia Police told us now that the trial has concluded, they'll carry out a fast-track misconduct hearing for Benjamin Monk. In the wake of the Black Lives Matter movement, Mr Atkinson's family said they hope there'll be a change in the way black communities are treated by the police and by the criminal justice system.
A police officer has been cleared of assaulting former footballer Dalian Atkinson before he died. PC Mary Ellen Betley-Smith had been facing a retrial over an allegation she struck the former Aston Villa, Sheffield Wednesday and Ipswich player prior to his death in Telford in 2016. Betley-Smith is pictured here last year wearing a pink face mask. The jury deliberated for just over 3 hours before acquitting the officer who struck Mr Atkinson 3 times with a baton after he was tasered to the ground by PC Benjamin Monk, who was jailed last year for manslaughter.
The police officer who repeatedly struck former Aston Villa striker Dalian Atkinson with her baton will keep her job despite being found guilty of gross misconduct by the Independent Office for Police Conduct today. A warning: you may find details of this story distressing. In August 2016, PC Mary Ellen Betley-Smith from West Mercia Police hit Atkinson 3 times in the head, despite the presence of backup and the fact that he was on the ground. Betley-Smith, here in the pink mask, was cleared of actual bodily harm in her criminal trial in 2021. But her more experienced colleague, PC Benjamin Monk, here on the left, was jailed for 8 years for manslaughter. The disciplinary panel today had the option to sack her, but chose to give her a final written warning. Mr Atkinson's sister, Elaine, said today that she was disappointed with the outcome.
The jury at Birmingham Crown Court heard that the 2 officers were in a relationship at the time of the incident, and that if it wasn't for their actions, Dalian Atkinson would still be alive.